My name is Ida Johnson, 25 years old. The night before my birthday, I moved every dollar my dead father left me into an irrevocable trust. I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell my sister. At 11:53 p.m., I signed the final page, sealed the envelope, and went to bed with the lamp still on. At 7:14 the next morning, my sister walked into our parents' kitchen carrying a manila folder and a birthday smile. She said, "Mom and Dad agreed. We need to talk about that money." My blood ran cold, not because I was afraid, but because I finally understood how long they had been planning this breakfast. My parents' house in Adena was decorated the way people decorate when they are trying to cover something. The tree was 7 feet and entirely too full. The garlands on the banister were doubled. Catherine had lit the cinnamon candle she normally reserved for Easter and for in-laws. The windows were steamed from the inside, and the radio was tuned to a station I had never heard in that house. Something soft and Scandinavian and careful not to offend anyone. She met me at the door with both hands, which she had not done in years. "Sweetheart, let me get your favorite cocoa. I made it extra sweet tonight." Nathan was at the sink rinsing a glass that did not need rinsing. He lifted his chin and smiled and did not come closer. "Birthday girl," he said. "Tomorrow's the big one, 1/4 century." 1/4 century, I repeated, because that was the sentence I could produce without effort. I carried my duffel up to my old room, the one Brooke had been using as storage since 2019, and sat on the edge of the twin bed. The air smelled of her perfume and of a box of my books I had never given her. Down the hall, I could hear Catherine speaking in the voice she used for phone calls she didn't want me to hear. Low, fast, 3 sentences at a time. "I have a theory about houses. A house keeps the shape of whatever has been planned in it. You can tell, walking in, whether a room has been decorated for you or for a scene that includes you." That night, as I stood at the top of the stairs and looked down at the foyer with its second garland and its extra candle, I understood I had walked into a set. I didn't yet know the lines, but I knew I was being cast. Nathan has a tell. When he lies, he taps his wedding ring against whatever he's holding. Twice, usually. I first noticed when I was 17 and he told a loan officer we owned our boat outright. He was holding a glass of scotch. 2 taps. We did not own the boat. That evening, as I came back downstairs, he was standing in the kitchen with a mug of coffee and a cell phone I did not recognize. It was black, slightly thicker than his usual one, and he slid it into the drawer beside the oven mitts the moment he saw me. He did not tap the ring. He did not need to. The drawer said enough. "Dad," I said. I had not called him Dad in a long time, but I used it then because it was a small test. "Who was that?" "Work, policy renewal. Couldn't wait." He smiled the smile he used with skittish clients. "You hungry?" I was not. I went and sat by the tree and pretended to scroll on my phone. In my head, I was counting the times I had seen that second phone. 3, the last in mid-November, when I had come by unannounced and heard him on the back porch saying, "Dennis, just give me till the 5th. After the 5th, I can wire it." I had not known what the 5th was. I knew now. I had another piece of knowledge, too. It had arrived 3 days earlier by overnight mail, and I had not yet opened it. Uncle Jim sent it from Duluth. There was a note on the outside of the padded envelope in his square, block letter handwriting. "Open this only on or after the night of December 4th. It is what your father asked me to give you on your 25th. Uncle Jim." I had carried it in my purse since Tuesday. I had felt it move each time I moved. In the kitchen, I excused myself, climbed back to my room, locked the door, and sat on the floor against it. The envelope had 3 seals, a small disc of red wax with a J pressed into it, a strip of airline tape, the old cloth kind with hand-drawn blue lines, and across the wax, a signature I recognized from exactly one photograph I had ever seen of my father. D. Johnson, February 2001. He had signed this envelope a month before he died. I broke the wax carefully. I remember thinking that, remember the care, because it was the first moment that night I behaved like a person who had decided something. Inside were 4 things. A handwritten letter, 3 pages, on the soft, unlined stationery my father apparently used for serious correspondence. A certified copy of his will, dated January of 2001. A business card with the name Edward Prescott, attorney at law, St. Paul, printed in small dry letters, and a single sheet headed in my father's slightly forward-leaning handwriting, Watch for. There were 5 bullet points. I skimmed them once and then read them again, slower. The second one said, if Catherine remarries within 2 years, call Ed immediately. She had remarried in 15 months. I read the letter then, start to finish, sitting on the floor of a room that had not been mine in years. The first line was, if you're reading this, I didn't make it home. The second line was, I need you to understand something your mother might try to hide. When I reached the part that said, the money is not a gift. It is a shield. Do not share it until you know who around you is safe. I stood up, walked to my purse, and took out my phone. I called the number on the business card. A man answered on the second ring, as if he had been waiting by it. Is this Ida? He said. It wasn't a question. Yes. I'm sorry it took this long. I sat down on the bed. Outside the window, Minnesota was beginning to snow, the first real fall of the season, slow and patient. My father paid you for this call in 2001, I said. Didn't he? 24 years ago, Edward Prescott said. Let's not waste it. He told me where to meet him. A diner just off E35, neon sign out front, coffee strong enough to be useful. He told me what to bring, my social security card, my birth certificate, my passport, a notebook, and the envelope. He told me not to tell my mother. She already knows something is wrong, he said. She's been calling my office since August. I sat with that for a long moment. My mother had not mentioned Edward Prescott once in 25 years. My mother had called him in August. Downstairs, I could hear Nathan laughing at something on the television. Too loud, the performative laugh he used when he wanted to appear relaxed. I packed the canvas McAllister tote bag Hannah had given me when we graduated, zipped the envelope inside it, and told Catherine I had to run to the co-op for a prescription. She did not question it. She was, I realized, no longer paying attention to me. She was paying attention to tomorrow. I signed the final page at 11:53 p.m. at a laminated booth in a diner whose neon sign read OEN 24, because the P had burned out years before. When the pen lifted from the paper, my hand was steady, which surprised me. I did not feel victorious. I felt orphaned for the second time. The next morning I was downstairs at 7:12. Catherine was already in the kitchen, already dressed, already orbiting the island the way she did before church. She was wearing the sweater I had given her the Christmas I worked at the bookstore. Her hair was pinned at the back, which she did for occasions. Nathan was reading the Star Tribune at the table, with the cinnamon candle burning next to his plate. Sweetheart, what would you like for breakfast? Catherine asked. Coffee's fine, I said. Pancakes? I can do pancakes. You love pancakes. I ate already, Mom. Bacon and eggs then. It's your day. Anything you want. Anything. She asked me twice more over the next 3 minutes. I counted. A mother asks her daughter twice what she wants to eat when she is performing. She asks 3 times when she is performing for someone else in the room. She asks 4 when she is rehearsing. I let her scramble the eggs. At 7:14 exactly, the front door opened and Brooke walked in without knocking. She was not carrying a gift. She was not carrying flowers. She was carrying a green folder and a very practiced smile. And for a tenth of a second, when she saw me in the kitchen, the smile caught on something, as if she had expected me to be at the table facing the wall, and I was facing the door instead. Happy birthday, sis, she said, and placed the folder not on the table, but on the island between Catherine's mixing bowl and Nathan's paper. The folder had a small printed logo in the corner, Ashford Family Agreements, in a font. With a watermark, it was the kind of folder you design when you have decided to be a brand. She poured herself a coffee without being offered one. Nathan folded his paper. Catherine turned down the stove. So, Brooke said. She opened the folder to a page with a tab on it, already bookmarked. Mom and Dad agreed. We need to talk about that money. It's just the fair thing to do. I let that sentence sit in the kitchen. I let it walk around. I let it introduce itself to each piece of furniture. Fair, I said. Fair, Nathan echoed, warm as broth. It's a family thing, Ida. Your grandfather, Dan's father, always talked about fairness. He'd want the girls to share. My grandfather had not talked about fairness. My grandfather had been dead since 1996, and Nathan had never met him. but Nathan had learned to name dead men confidently, because dead men do not correct you. I paged through the folder. It was 6 pages, a cover, a statement of purpose, a narrative paragraph in Catherine's voice about healing the family, a chart, a schedule, and on page 6, beneath the signature line marked Ida E. Johnson, there was already a signature, my signature, one I had not written. It was a decent forgery. The I had the right lean, the J had the right loop, but I signed my name with a specific hesitation between the first and last. A pause, a tiny lift of the pen, and whoever had made the forgery had drawn it all in one pass. I did not point at it. I did not pull my phone out. I did not raise my voice. I turned to page 1 and began to read as though I cared what it said. Nathan began his pitch. He was very good. He had practiced. He talked about the 3 of us, about the family, about how we had all been through so much, about how Catherine had sacrificed, about how he had raised me as his own, about how the money, that money, he called it, as if it were a stranger in the room, could do so much more if we worked together, if we pooled it, if we let him manage the investment side, because he was the one in the family with the experience. Twice, while he talked, he tapped his wedding ring against his coffee mug. Brooke picked up where he left off. She was softer, sweeter, more specifically aimed. She said she was getting married next spring, which was news to me, and she said the wedding would be in Catherine's backyard, which was news to Catherine, judging by Catherine's face. She said she had been looking at small business opportunities. She said it was sad that Dad had left everything to one of us, because he hadn't known, when he made the trust, that there would be another girl, and of course he would have wanted us both to be loved equally. She was sure of it. I let her finish. Catherine did not speak. Catherine refilled my coffee from the other side of the island, and her hand was not shaking, which was its own kind of tell. When Brooke ran out of sentences, she smiled at me and said gently, like an older sister addressing a child about to be disappointed, "So, would you like to sign now or after breakfast?" I said. "Before I sign anything, I'd like to show you something." I reached into my bag and took out the copy Prescott had made for me the night before. A single page, folded once, photocopied from the handwritten original. I set it on top of the folder, lined up with the logo, the way a waiter sets down a check. "What is that?" Brooke said. "Dad wrote it," I said, 3 weeks before he died. "Do you want me to read page 2, or would you like to?" The kitchen went quiet in the way a kitchen can only go quiet when everyone in it has just understood something at the same time. Catherine put her hand over her mouth. Brooke looked at Nathan. Nathan looked at the drawer beside the oven mitts. And then, without meaning to, he tapped his wedding ring against the coffee mug 3 times. 1, 2, 3. The third one harder than the other 2. The furnace clicked on. To understand why my blood had already run cold when I heard the words Mom and Dad agreed, you have to understand that I had been counting things, quietly, since I was 9 years old. The first thing I counted was months. I was looking through a photo album that Catherine had left on the coffee table. Her wedding to Nathan. The dress was ivory, and the venue was the small Lutheran chapel on Bryant. And in the photograph, Catherine was smiling with her hand resting on her stomach. In that hand, beneath the silk, was a small curve, a 4-month curve. The wedding was dated June 2002. Brooke was born in November 2002. I was 9. I did the math. I asked Catherine about it. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, and closed the album. "You'll understand when you're older. Your dad would have wanted me to be happy. He told me so, you know, before." He had been dead for less than a year and a half when she stood in that chapel. I did not ask again. The second thing I counted was mail. Every March, the month my father died, a card would arrive from Duluth. Small, square, addressed to me. Each one in the same block letter handwriting. "Your dad would be proud. Call me any time, kid. Jim." Each one bore a single postage stamp, and the stamps were never new ones. They were aviation stamps. A 38 Lockheed, a 49 Constellation, a 68 SR-71. The kind my father had collected as a boy, the kind Uncle Jim apparently still had in a drawer somewhere. I never got them. I found them when I was 18, packed into a shoebox behind the Christmas lights in the garage, 16 cards in a stack with a rubber band around them. Catherine had saved them. She had not given them to me. She had saved them, which was almost worse, because it meant she had known each year that they were coming and had made a decision. Each year that I should not have them. I sat in the garage on a 5-gallon bucket and read all 16 in the order they had arrived. The third thing I counted was the absences. My 8th birthday was not held because it fell on the day of Brooke's baptism. My 10th grade honor roll was not mentioned at dinner because Nathan had gotten a promotion that week. The name Johnson vanished from my mail somewhere between 5th and 6th grade. When I asked, Catherine said she had just updated things on my school records. "You're in Ashford now, Ida," Nathan said, when he signed my field trip form that year. "We don't need the old name." I nodded. I was 11. I went to school. I told my teacher my name had changed, and then quietly, 2 weeks later, told her it hadn't, that I had been mistaken. She looked at me the way teachers look at children who are figuring something out for themselves. By the time I was 17, I had my father's name back on my driver's license, on my college applications, on my bank account. Catherine did not mention it. Neither did Nathan. They had already moved on to counting something else. That night, sitting on the couch in the living room of the house they had built on top of my father, I finally read the letter. It was 3 pages. His handwriting leaned slightly forward, the way mine does. I had not known that about him. He wrote on both sides. He wrote without crossing anything out. The first page was about aviation. He apologized for the fact that he would probably never take me up. And he told me the name of the plane he was testing. And he told me that if I ever wanted to know what he had loved, Uncle Jim could show me. He said planes were not about danger. They were about trust. The trust you placed in every rivet, every weld, every pre-flight check. And that love, real love, was built the same way. The second page was about Catherine. "I loved your mother," he wrote. "I am not sure she loves me the way I love her. There is a man at the book club who has been waiting for her. I don't know if she sees it. If she does, and if I don't come home, she will marry him very fast, because she is afraid of being alone, and he will know exactly how to use that fear. His name is Nathan. If you ever hear that name, be careful, kid. He is not the same species of animal as your mother and me." I read that paragraph 3 times. I put the letter down. I got up and walked to the window and looked out at the snow, which had begun falling in the kind of flakes Minnesota produces only when it is serious about a storm. I went back to the couch and kept reading. The third page was about the money. "There is a trust," he wrote. "It is not an inheritance. It is a shield. Ed Prescott in St. Paul will maintain it until you are 25. Your uncle is a co-trustee. Do not share it until you know who around you is safe. Do not let her tell you it is for the family. It is for you. I built it because I am a man who looks at the weather and plans for the thing he hopes will not happen. If you ever read this letter, that thing happened." He signed the last page, Dad. March 2nd, 2001. 2 weeks later, he climbed into a Beechcraft on a clear morning in Florida and did not come back. I went upstairs. I packed the canvas bag. I took my Social Security card out of the tin it had been in since I graduated. I took my birth certificate out of the drawer where my mother kept the things that had my father's name on them. I put the letter, the will, the card from Ed Prescott, and the 5-line list titled "Watch For" into the inner pocket. I came back downstairs, put on my coat, and told Catherine I needed to go to the co-op. She was in the kitchen, arranging cinnamon rolls on a plate for the morning. She did not look up. "Okay, sweetheart," she said. "Drive safe." I drove out of the driveway and did not look in the rearview mirror. If I had, I would have seen what I already knew, that the woman who had just said "drive safe" was standing at the kitchen window watching me go, and that the look on her face was the look of a person who had, once again, chosen not to say something. Edward Prescott was already in the booth when I walked in. Mid-60s, gray suit, coat folded neatly on the bench beside him, not thrown. He had 2 file folders in front of him and a black coffee that he was not drinking. He was turning the cup in place, slowly, the way some men turn wedding rings. He stood when I came in, which surprised me. "Ida." "Mr. Prescott." "Ed, please." "Your father called me Ed for 9 years. I sat. The booth was laminated, the vinyl patched with gaffer's tape in the corner. The waitress came. Prescott waved her off with a smile she had clearly seen before, and she went. "I'm going to tell you some things," Prescott said, "and I want you to ask me to stop if it becomes too much." "I won't ask you to stop," I said. He nodded once. He opened the first folder. He told me about the trust. It had been drafted in January 2001, executed in February, and funded with the proceeds of my father's life insurance policy, plus the aerospace portfolio my father had built over 6 years. It had matured, specifically, had become mine to claim, on my 25th birthday. Until then, a co-trustee structure had protected it. Prescott's firm on one side, my Uncle Jim on the other, with an independent trust company as neutral administrator. The corpus was $2,310,000. Irrevocable, Prescott said. We can tighten it further tonight if you agree. What we can't do is undo it. Once you sign the amendment, even you can't give this money away without unanimous trustee consent. That was your father's idea. He thought I would be pressured. He thought, Prescott said carefully, that someone would wait until the day you could access it and try to move quickly. He slid the second folder across the table. This is what your stepfather has been doing since 2019. I opened it. I am not going to describe every page. I want to. I want to tell you about the yellow post-it with the phone number for Dennis L. 612-555-XXXX, confirmed bookmaker, because that sticky note changed something in my chest. I want to tell you about the spreadsheet with 12 lines on it, 12 names, 12 policy numbers, 12 victims. I want to tell you about the ledger of Nathan's gambling debt, $685,000, which had grown like a tumor since the pandemic, and about the $215,000 he had lost in a fake diamond insurance scheme he had been convinced was genius. But the moment I think of most is the moment the door chimed and Hannah Bergstrom walked in, carrying a laptop bag and a look that was half apology, half relief. Hannah and I had been friends since the first week of freshman year at Macalester. We had studied in the same library, cried in the same dorm bathroom, graduated on the same stage. She was now a forensic accountant for a small firm in St. Paul. She was also, I learned that night, the niece of a man who had been a co-worker of my father's, which was how Uncle Jim had quietly arranged for us to end up in the same orientation group in 2018. I did not know that yet. I only knew that when she sat down beside me and opened the laptop, her hand was already on my back. Ida, I've known your stepfather was cooking something since Thanksgiving. I didn't say anything because I didn't have proof. Now I do. She turned the screen. There was a credit card statement, issued July 2024, opened under the name Ida E. Johnson, at an address I did not live at. Current balance, $18,500. None of these charges are yours? None. Good. She tapped a stylus. Then we've got him on identity theft, in addition to everything else. Prescott was quiet. Then he said, we should amend the trust tonight, all three of us, and we should have your uncle co-sign first thing in the morning. Why tonight? Because tomorrow they're going to put something in front of you. I looked at him. How do you know? Because your mother, he said slowly, called my office this morning to ask whether the trust could be dissolved by family consent. I told her no. She did not take it well. I sat with that. On the table, the diner's clock read 11:22. Hannah quietly slid a stack of signature-ready documents in front of me. If they come at you tomorrow, Prescott said, you'll already have the paperwork. I signed the first page. I signed the second. I signed a line that said sole beneficiary, Ida Eleanor Johnson. And then the amendment that removed any family member dissolution clause. And then the amendment that added criminal liability protection in the event of fraud, forgery, or undue influence. When the pen lifted from the last page, I checked the clock. The second hand quivered as it hit 11:53. Done, Prescott said. He closed the folder. I drove home through snow that had begun to stick. On my phone, a text from Brooke was waiting. Breakfast tomorrow, sis. Mom made pancakes. I did not answer. I did not sleep. If you've ever felt a quiet in your own house like the one I walked into that night, the kind that tells you the people who love you have stopped telling you the truth, stay with me. I want to tell you what happened at breakfast. I want to tell you what was in the drawer by the oven mitts. And I want to tell you what my father's brother drove 3 hours through the snow to put in my hands. If this is hitting something, leave a quiet mark so I know you're here. I'll keep telling it. After breakfast that morning, after I placed my father's letter on top of the folder, after Catherine put her hand over her mouth, after Nathan tapped his ring 3 times, no one signed anything. No one spoke for a long time. Brooke finally collected her green folder and said she had an appointment and left. Catherine went upstairs. Nathan went to the garage. I finished my coffee, packed the canvas bag, and drove back to my studio in Minneapolis. Nathan did not come after me. That was his first mistake. For 3 days, the house in Adena was quiet. I did not call. They did not call. I slept and did not sleep and reread the letter and spent an afternoon with Hannah walking through spreadsheets. On the morning of the 8th, Nathan emailed the entire family, Catherine, Brooke, and me, plus Pastor Alan Whitaker of Lutheran Redeemer on the copy line. Ida, we've asked Pastor Whitaker to help us heal as a family. Sunday evening, 6 o'clock. It's important. He had chosen 6 o'clock on a Sunday because it put Pastor Whitaker in shepherd mode. Straight out of the 5 o'clock service. Collar still warm, empathy fully engaged. I looked at the email for a long time, and then I wrote back 2 words. I'll come. I called Prescott first. Then I called Hannah. Then I called Uncle Jim. All 3 told me the same thing in 3 different voices. Let them talk. Record everything. Show nothing until the end. I arrived at 6 on the dot. I had been sitting in my car on the block since 5:40. I had set my phone to record at 5:58, checked the audio level, placed it in my coat pocket, and walked up the driveway with my hands empty. Catherine opened the door. She had been crying, prepared crying, eye makeup preserved. She squeezed my arm gently and ushered me in. Pastor Whitaker was already in the living room, in the chair nearest the window. He was a kind man with a tired face. Brooke and Nathan were on the sofa. There was hot water in a carafe and a small plate of shortbread cookies. There was a pad of legal paper on the coffee table with nothing on it. Ida, Pastor Whitaker said, "Thank you for coming. This family loves you. We're going to see if we can find a way forward." I sat in the armchair across from him and said nothing. My phone was in the pocket, running. Nathan led. He talked for 12 minutes. He talked about grief. He talked about how hard my father's death had been on Catherine, on him, on all of them. He talked about how he had tried, all these years, to be a father to me. He talked about how money had a way of dividing a family, how the enemy loved to use money, how the only answer was transparency and trust. He did not at any point mention the trust itself, or the amount, or the amendment, or the life insurance. He used the word inheritance twice and the word gift 4 times. Brooke cried twice for approximately 2 minutes each time. She said through tears that Dad Nathan had done so much for us. She said the words Dad Nathan 3 times, more times than I had heard her say them in the last 10 years combined. She said the money was tearing us apart. She said she just wanted her sister back. Catherine spoke last. She spoke about how her heart had been broken by the idea that her 2 daughters could not love each other through something as small as paperwork. She said the phrase "my 2 girls" 6 times. She said she had prayed over it. She did not look at me. Pastor Whitaker listened and nodded and occasionally folded his hands. When they were done, he turned to me. "Ida, would you like to respond?" I reached into my bag. I put the folder Hannah had built on the coffee table. I opened it slowly, in the same way Brooke had opened hers 3 days earlier. "Before I respond," I said, "I'd like to show you some things, and I'd like to ask Pastor Whitaker to stay, because some of what I'm going to show you concerns someone he knows." Nathan's face did not change, but under the coffee table, his foot shifted. I took out the credit card first, the blue plastic one, in my name, that I had never seen. I set it on the table. I said nothing for a full beat. Then I took out the 3 receipts with Catherine's forged signature, printed from bank records Hannah had pulled. Then I took out the memo from 2003, per agreement, Silence Re D Insurance, and I laid it beside the receipts. Then I took out the printout of the messenger conversation between Brooke and a woman named Tasha Whitaker Lund, in which Brooke had casually referred to my inheritance as bringing the 2.3 home. Pastor Whitaker picked up the messenger printout. He read it. His face did not change exactly. It simply became very still. Then he stood up. "Excuse me," he said. "I need a moment." He walked out of the living room, through the foyer, and out the front door. He closed it quietly behind him. The click of the latch was the loudest sound in the house. Nathan turned to me. The empathetic stepfather mask was gone. Underneath, Something much flatter was looking at me. You ungrateful little... He stopped himself. You don't know what you're doing. Nathan, don't. Catherine reached for his sleeve. He pulled his arm away and tapped his wedding ring against the coffee mug. 3 times. The last one audible. We raised you, he said. You wouldn't have a roof over your head without me. You wouldn't have gone to college. You wouldn't have... Nathan. He stopped. I've been recording for 38 minutes. He looked at my coat, at my pocket, at my hand, which was in the pocket, resting beside the phone. You just gave me enough for the insurance fraud board. You also gave me enough for the identity theft charge. And you gave me the one thing Hannah was worried we wouldn't get. Your voice, on tape, referring to the trust as something you have access to. Brooke stood up. She looked at Nathan. She looked at Catherine. She said, Mom. And then stopped. She picked up her coat and walked out of the living room. Nathan, a beat later, followed her. He did not look at Catherine. He did not look at me. He closed the door more loudly than Pastor Whitaker had. Catherine and I were alone. She sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands in her lap, her shoulders lower than I had seen them in years. She took off her wedding ring, the second one, the Nathan one, and placed it on the coffee table, and then, after a long breath, put it back on. I didn't know it had gotten this bad, she said. Yes, you did, Mom. She did not answer. She looked at the blue credit card on the table with my name on it, and she began, quietly, to cry. I let her. We're going to talk, I said, but not tonight. Tomorrow, alone, without him. I stood, put on my coat, and walked out of the house I had grown up in. Hannah met me the next morning at a coffee shop in Uptown. She had not slept either. She had 3 file tabs open on her laptop when I sat down, and a paper cup of black tea already waiting for me. I want to walk you through it in layers, she said. Small to big? Go. Layer 1, she clicked. Identity theft. The card you saw last night is not the only one. There's a second line of credit, opened March of 2024 at a different bank. 11,200, maxed. Payments being made from a joint account you did not know existed. Who opened the joint account? Your mother. I did not react. I wrote it in the notebook. Layer 2, she clicked. Boutique laundering. Your sister's side of the multi-level marketing company, the events arm, technically, has been receiving small, regular payments from a Shell LLC registered to Nathan. The amounts are small. The pattern isn't. She's been moving money for him since 2022. She probably doesn't know the full scope. Probably. She knows some, not all. Hannah paused. She's his conduit, not his partner. That'll matter later if this goes criminal. I nodded. Layer 3, the diamond insurance thing. She turned the screen. There was an Excel sheet. 12 rows. Each one a name, a policy number, a premium, a status. I read down the list. At row 9, I stopped. The name was Whitaker. A. Is that Pastor Whitaker's father? He died in 2023. The policy was supposed to pay out to Pastor Whitaker's mother for memory care facility costs. Nathan sold it to him in 2021, with rider language that made the entire policy void in cases of lifestyle-induced cognitive decline, Alzheimer's. Hannah's voice was flat. He collected a commission. The family collected nothing. I sat back against the wooden chair. So when Pastor Whitaker walked out last night, he walked out, Hannah said, because he already knew. He just didn't have the names. That was the moment the shape of the thing changed for me. Until then, I had been fighting for a trust. After that, I understood I was fighting for people I had never met. Hannah then gently, carefully, moved to layer 4. There's one more, she said. It's not about the money. Show me. She pulled up a claim form, faded, scanned from a county archive. The life insurance on your father, the one that funded the trust. The claim was filed on April 7th, 2001. 3 weeks after the crash, she paused. It was filed by Nathan. The air in the coffee shop got very quiet. Nathan didn't have any legal standing to file it. He wasn't related. He wasn't the beneficiary. He shouldn't have even had the policy information. Unless your mother gave it to him, before. I stared at the screen. I stared at the date. I stared at the handwritten portion of the form, in a hand I did not recognize, but which, after a moment, I did. Nathan's signature, 2001. 24 years before he would sit in his living room and call me ungrateful. Ida, Hannah said softly. He didn't kill your father. There is no evidence of that. The crash was mechanical. The NTSB was clear. But he was around your mother before your father died. He was close enough to know the policy existed. He moved fast. He has always been a man who moves fast. I pressed the back of my thumb against my closed eye, hard, and then let go. And my mother? Your mother, Hannah said, met him at a book club in January of 2001. Your father knew. Your father wrote about it in that letter. She didn't cheat on him. No, but she didn't tell him to stop coming around. I drove to Duluth the next day. The highway was clean and gray and empty. The way I-35 gets in the first week of December when the tourists are gone and the ice fishermen haven't arrived yet. I made the drive in a hair under 3 hours. I did not play music. I let the silence sit in the car with me. Uncle Jim opened his front door before I knocked. He was 60 years old, a little shorter than I had imagined, with the same nose my father had in the one photograph I carried in my wallet. His wife Lorraine was in the kitchen. 2 kids, Travis, 9, and Annika Rose, 6, were on the floor with a half-finished puzzle. Kiddo, he said, I've been waiting a long time to hug you in my own house. He hugged me. It lasted about 4 seconds. Nobody in my family had hugged me that way in a decade. There were pictures on the wall. The bakery where my father had worked one summer in high school. The Cessna he had co-owned with Jim in the 90s. A wedding photo of my mother and father, small and silver-framed, in the hallway by the bathroom, where I was not expected to see it, where it was kept, but not kept on display. Jim made coffee, Lorraine made sandwiches. Annika rose, without being asked, climbed into the chair beside me and looked at me with the unguarded attention of a child who has heard a name and has been waiting to meet the person attached to it. After lunch, Jim took me into his workshop. He was a carpenter mostly. His workbench smelled of cedar and machine oil. He pulled a leather-bound notebook down from the top shelf. Your dad was writing a book, he said. Aerospace. He didn't finish. I've kept it for you. Why didn't you send it sooner? Because you weren't ready, he said, and then gentler, and because your mother wouldn't have let you keep it. I took the notebook in both hands. On the drive back to Minneapolis, just outside Sandstone, my phone buzzed. I pulled into a gas station. Hannah, there's one more. It's not about the money. Call me when you're alone. I called. The wind came across the pumps and shook the car. The policy claim, Hannah said. The 2001 one. It had a rider I missed, a widow's survivor clause. Meaning, if your mother remarried within 2 years of your father's death, a portion of the payout, $150,000, would be forfeited to the trust. Returned to you. Did it? No. Nathan filed a late amendment. He convinced an adjuster that your mother had not remarried, technically, legally, until after the 2-year mark. It's a paperwork lie. $150,000. That was supposed to go to you, at 25, on top of the trust. It never did. I looked through the windshield at the snow blowing across the empty lot. Ida, Hannah said. The reason your mother married him so fast, part of it anyway, was that the policy expected her not to. They beat the clock on purpose. I asked Catherine to meet me at a diner halfway between Edina and Minneapolis. Not the house, not her house, not my house, not any house. A booth, a neutral table, coffee I could leave behind. She came in her old wool coat, the one from the early years when she still dressed like a teacher, and the blue scarf I had given her for Christmas in 2014. She did not bring her purse, which struck me. She brought her hands and her body and nothing else. I had arrived 15 minutes early. I had chosen a booth near the window. I wanted light on her face. Hi, Mom. Hi, sweetheart. She slid in across from me. The waitress brought her coffee without being asked. She had the kind of face that told waitresses to do that. I waited until the waitress was gone. Mom, I need you to tell me if Nathan was in our lives before Dad died. She stirred her coffee 3 times. She set the spoon down. She looked past me, out the window, at the parking lot. Yes. The word arrived small and level. I had braced for a speech. She did not give me one. How long before? 2 months, a little more, a book club at the library. He came up to me at the end. He asked if I wanted to get coffee. I said I was married. And then? And then he said he would be at the book club the next week, and the next. And I started going, not to see him, to not be alone in a house with a baby and a husband who was traveling for work. Did Dad know? Your father knew that I was going to a book club. He did not know who was in it. Did you? I didn't cheat on him. She looked at me now, steadily. I never touched Nathan before your father died. I need you to believe that. Not for me, for the record. I believe you. Her mouth trembled once and then stopped. Catherine has never been a woman who allowed herself to shake for longer than 1 second in public. But when Dad died, I said. When Dad died, she repeated. Nathan filed the life insurance claim, 3 weeks after. He signed his name on a document he had no standing to sign. Mom, he knew the policy. He knew the numbers. He knew them before the funeral. She closed her eyes. Yes. How? I told him. I mentioned it. At the book club. Before. I was proud of your father. He had built this plan. I said, Dan has made sure we'll be all right no matter what. And Nathan remembered the numbers. You made sure we'd be all right, I said slowly. By marrying the man who had memorized our safety net. Ida. Did you know, Mom? Did you know that by remarrying inside 2 years, $150,000 was supposed to come back to me, and that Nathan filed a late amendment to keep it? She went very still. I didn't know the amount, she said finally. I knew there was something. He told me to sign a paper. I signed it. I didn't read it. You signed it because he told you to. I signed it, she said quietly, because I was more afraid of being alone with a baby and a widow's name than I was of signing something I didn't understand. I let that sit on the table between us. She picked up her coffee. She put it down without drinking. I didn't betray your father, Ida, but I didn't grieve him the way you deserve me to. I know that. I have known that for a very long time. Mom, yes, the $12,000 Nathan paid you during the first 2 years, with the memo line pair agreement, Silence Re D Insurance. What was that agreement? Her eyes filled, but her face did not change. He told me it was a tax correction. I believed him because I needed to. Did you sign anything else? I signed whatever he put in front of me. I watched her. I watched the small trembling at her jaw that she had been controlling for half my lifetime. I watched the way she did not reach for my hand because she knew she had not earned it. I loved your father, she said, but I was more afraid of being alone than I loved him. Nathan showed up when I was scared, and I did not have the strength to say no. And every year after, I told myself I was keeping you safe. And every year after that, I knew I was lying. I took out a folded piece of paper from my coat pocket. A list, 6 bullet points, printed from my laptop that morning. This, I said, is what our relationship looks like going forward, if you want one. I slid it to her. 1. No contact with Nathan in my presence, ever. 2. No contact with Brooke unless she apologizes to me in writing, reviewed by Prescott. 3. No financial requests of any kind. 4. No surprise visits. 5. Any meeting between us is scheduled through Prescott's office, no more than 4 times per year. 1 hour each, in a neutral place. 6. We reevaluate in 12 months. She read it slowly. She read it twice. She did not cry. Okay, she said. Mom, I don't hate you, but I'm done confusing survival with love. Dad taught me the difference the night before my birthday. She nodded once. I stood. I put on my coat. I left a 20 for the waitress. Catherine did not rise. She did not follow. She sat in the booth, looking at the list, her hands folded around a cup that had gone cold. I did not look back, because I did not need to. For 3 days after that, it was quiet. Adina was quiet. The house was quiet. My phone was quiet. I let it be. Then Brooke wrote a Facebook post. It was 412 words. It went up at 6 in the evening. It came down at 9. In those 3 hours, 39 people screenshot it. The post said, in the measured pseudo-spiritual voice Brooke had been cultivating since her MLM days, that some people let money turn them into strangers. It said, please pray for my family. It said her sister, it did not name me, but the adjectives did, had abandoned her parents during the holidays, had refused to sit down like an adult, had let greed poison what had once been love. One line said, she left our parents alone on Christmas Eve. That line was her mistake. The rest was smoke. That one was a fact, and the fact was wrong. I had not been in Edina on Christmas Eve of any year for the past 5. The entire Lutheran Redeemer community knew this, because Catherine had been the one telling them, year after year, that her older daughter was too busy with work to come home. Wasn't it a shame? Wasn't it sad? Maybe next year. 39 people saw the post. 8 of them texted me within the hour. 2 of them called. Pastor Whitaker was the 3rd call. "Ida," he said. "May I come see you?" I said yes. He came to my studio apartment, my last night in the old one, as it happened. Boxes along the wall, my books in stacks on the floor. He accepted a cup of tea and sat in my kitchen chair and did not speak for 40 minutes. He simply sat and drank and looked out the small window at the falling snow. When he spoke, it was quietly. My father trusted Nathan. He bought a policy from him in 2021. A rider on it voided the payout in the event of what the paperwork called lifestyle-induced cognitive decline. My father had Alzheimer's, Ida. He did not have it from lifestyle. He had it because his mother had it. My mother has been in a care facility on a payment plan since January. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I'm not here to make you sorry. He set the mug down. I'm here to tell you that I will testify. 9 of the 12 people your accountant identified have already agreed to testify. The 10th is my mother's attorney. The 11th is a widow in St. Cloud who lost $65,000. The 12th we are still trying to reach. Pastor. There's something else. He reached into his coat. My niece. He laid a small photograph on the table. A woman in her 20s, professionally dressed. Tasha Whitaker Lund, he said. My brother's daughter. She has been working in your sister's company for 2 years. When you placed those messenger printouts on the coffee table, she was in that chat. I didn't know she was related to you. Neither did your sister. He smiled, very faintly, for the first time since arriving. My niece came to me the day after the family meeting. She handed me every message she has ever exchanged with Brooke about the inheritance. She'd been uneasy about it for months. She just hadn't known what to do. He set a small envelope on the table beside the photograph. Inside is an address. It's a contact at the Attorney General's office, Insurance Fraud Division. She's expecting your call. I looked at the envelope. I looked at him. Why are you doing this? Because when a pastor sees a man use God's language to steal, he said, that man has to learn he was never standing on stone. He left at 10. I called the contact the next morning. Her name was Margot Arneson. She was brisk, Midwestern, thorough. She asked for Hannah's spreadsheets, for Prescott's trust documents, for the audio from the family meeting, for the photocopies of Nathan's signatures on Catherine's policy amendment. She asked for all of it in writing, notarized, by close of business Tuesday. We delivered it by Monday. On the 18th of December, an email arrived from her office. Ms. Johnson, given the independent corroboration from 9 witnesses, we will be filing charges against Mr. Nathan Ashford by the end of next week. You will not be required to testify in the initial indictment. I will be in touch regarding next steps. Brooke lost her job with the MLM company 2 days later, when an internal investigation reached its quiet conclusion. She did not call me. She did not call Catherine. She drove to a friend's house in Duluth, not Uncle Jim's, a different one, and did not come back to Edina for the rest of the month. Catherine kept the house on Ashford. She did not leave Nathan immediately. She did not file for divorce immediately. She simply moved into the guest room and told the congregation through Pastor Whitaker that she would not be attending services for the next several weeks. Uncle Jim called me once. He said, "Come spend Christmas with us, kid. We've got a seat open. Always had." On the 20th of December, I moved. Hannah and 2 of her colleagues from the firm came with a borrowed truck. We loaded my books, my lamp, the desk my father's brother had shipped me from Duluth, handmade, walnut, with a brass plate that read, Johnson, 1972, and drove it all 4 miles east, to a 4th-floor apartment on a quiet street overlooking Bedemakaska. I had been chosen by the apartment more than the other way around. The realtor had shown me 3. The first was larger, the second was cheaper. The third had a window that framed the lake the way a good painter frames a subject, generously, without crowding. I signed the lease in the kitchen on a Thursday. I slept in the apartment for the first time on a Saturday. Hannah stood at the window after we had put down the last box. "This," she said, "is the first apartment you've ever chosen without asking permission." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. On the bare kitchen counter, I placed one framed photograph. The one from Uncle Jim's workshop. The one of my father and my uncle in their 20s, standing on the wing of a Cessna, laughing the way men laugh when they are not yet tired. On the coffee table, I placed the leather-bound notebook. I did not open it for 2 days. When I did, I made myself a cup of tea first. I sat in the armchair by the window. I let the snow fall on the lake. Then I untied the cord. 72 pages. Most of them were technical. Notes on propulsion, on lift to drag, on airframe stress. He had been planning a book for engineers, a patient one, an honest one. Around page 50, something happened. The writing shifted. The margins grew. The equations became anecdotes. The anecdotes became, quietly, a letter. On the last 3 pages, he had written directly to me, to a child who had not yet been born. I imagine you at 25, he wrote. I hope you have your mother's laugh, but not her fear. I hope you trust carefully, love patiently, and never apologize for inheriting what I worked for. It was always meant for you. He wrote about what he hoped I would read. He wrote about the books he was saving on his bookshelf. He wrote about the names he had considered, of which mine was the one he had chosen because it was the name of his own grandmother, whom he had loved, and who had told him once that the hardest part of growing up was learning whose love to trust and whose to survive. He signed it, Dad. March 2nd, 2001. I closed the notebook. I did not cry immediately. I made another cup of tea. I sat with it. I watched the lake. And then, the way a storm decides to become a storm. I cried the way I had not cried in 3 weeks. I cried without trying to stop. I cried the cry I had owed that 8-year-old girl at her forgotten birthday. I cried the cry I had saved for my father's funeral, which I had not attended, because I had been a 3-month-old baby. I cried until my face was hot and my breath was unsteady, and then I breathed out, and I was quiet. On Christmas Eve, I drove to Duluth. I brought a bag of gifts I had picked quickly and well, a bottle of single malt for Uncle Jim, a leather journal for Lorraine, a book of constellations for Travis, a small wooden plane for Annika Rose, carved by a man in Grand Marais who could not know why I cried when I paid for it. They had waited dinner for me. Lorraine made hot dish. Jim poured the whiskey. Travis showed me his drawing of a falcon. Annika Rose climbed into my lap, solemn as a judge, and handed me a folded piece of paper. The paper said, in 6-year-old handwriting, my cousin Ida. Underneath was a drawing, 2 stick figures, one taller, one smaller, holding hands, standing on what might have been a hill or a wing or both. I did not cry. I said thank you. I put the drawing in my wallet, where it still is. On the 28th, Catherine's first scheduled meeting with me was confirmed through Prescott's office. 45 minutes, 1 hour maximum, a neutral venue, Prescott present, no Nathan, no Brooke. She did not ask for my forgiveness. She did not perform sorrow. She asked quietly if there was anything I wanted her to know, and I said no. She asked if there was anything I wanted her to do, and I said, write me 1 letter, Mom, not to apologize, just to tell me who my father was, in your own words, the version you remember. She said she would try. The letter arrived at my new apartment 3 weeks later. It was 7 pages. It was honest. It was not entirely an apology. It was something better, a record. I read it twice. I put it in the drawer with my father's letter and the trust papers and the copies of the 16 cards from Uncle Jim. On the 31st of December, at 10 in the evening, I stood at the window of my apartment. A bouquet of yellow tulips, my father's flower, according to Uncle Jim, who remembered him buying them for their mother every spring, stood on the table behind me in a glass vase. I had lit 1 candle and placed it on the windowsill. The lake was black and silent under the snow. I thought about the cinnamon candle Catherine had lit on the morning of my birthday, and about the way a candle can be used to make a room look like home when a home is not being offered. I thought about the red wax seal my father had pressed onto the envelope 24 years ago. The J still legible, still steady, still pressed by a hand that believed in me before I existed. I thought about how, 3 months after I was born, he had left me a shield I would not need for 25 years. I did not know what I had done to deserve that kind of love, but I knew, standing there with the candle catching itself in the window glass, that I was going to live a life that earned it. I opened my father's letter. I read the last line aloud. To the lake, to the window, to the candle, to the woman I was becoming. Happy 25th, kid. You made it. I knew you would. I watched the snow fall. Thanks, Dad, I said. I made it.